Okay. So when I was 6 years old, I was molested by a babysitter. Now, even at that young, tender age, I knew that that was not acceptable behavior. And so I told my parents. And what happened, I don't know. I just never saw that man. I guess he was probably a boy. He wasn't even a man. But when you're 6, probably. And I feel like that should be the beginning of a story of a girl who knew her body and knew her voice and was empowered. And unfortunately, that's not the story. The story is that I related feminine power with sexuality. And from that young age, I had this experience that sexuality was not good. And then you add to that the many, many voices I heard from the adults in my life saying things like, well, what did she expect if she was going to wear that? And then if you were looking at a woman, if we were looking at a woman or discussing a woman who's maybe in a place of power, or she was confident, beautiful, strong, I saw the price that she had to pay, which was being talked about and not being accepted. So being beautiful and being strong and being feminine, being power in my world was a very big negative. So I decided to just shut that part of me down, and I worked very hard at not being feminine and not being sexy. And it didn't work. In the sense that by the time I was 10 or 12, my grandfather was molesting me. When I was 18, a boyfriend raped me when I was on a ski trip. I didn't leave him either because it was just, whatever. I don't know. That little girl that had that voice was no longer there. So I just carried a lot of shame around that. And not only did suppressing my femininity not protect me from the sexual abuse, it also left me with this gaping hole. I felt like there was something wrong with me, that I was broken in some way. I needed to be fixed. And the shame cycle was quite strong. I really believed that I had done something to attract this behavior from all of these men in my life. Because that is what I was told, not directly. Obviously, my family was always trying to support me and build me up, but it was all those messages that weren't direct that just seeped in. So I chose food to be my soothe food thing. And I was pretty sure it could fix me. It did not. But it was a wonderful distraction. And it, in fact, distracted me from my life for a good 20 years. My focus, my obsession was food and my body. And it occupied all of my thoughts and all of my time. But it was this incredible shame cycle because food and body image issues just add to the shame that was already there. So I would feel ashamed, I'd want to fix myself, I couldn't stick to anything that was going to fix me, so then I was a failure and I'd eat my way through, and so I would go. And that, I don't know, like I said, about 20 years that probably went on. When I went to naturopathic college, I got introduced to this concept of yin and yang. And this was fascinating to me, that the masculine and the feminine, the hard and the soft, they're interrelated and they can't exist without the other. So in the masculine is the seed of the feminine, and in the feminine is the seed of the masculine. And this was amazing to me, and this wonderful balance that happened and this flow that occurred. And when that flow gets disrupted is when dis-ease happens. I still at this point did not relate that to my struggles, though. I still was very masculine in how I tried to handle my food and body image issues, because that's what the diet world is, right? It's the Jillian Michaels. It's hard and it's in your face and it's angry. And so that fit this, I'm not being feminine. It was hard. And shockingly, it didn't work. That whole approach didn't work. So one day I wandered into a bookstore, looking for another diet, by the way. And I found a book called It's Not About Food. And I swear to God, this book was written for me. It talked about acceptance and allowing and compassion, and it filled me up. And without knowing it, I'd started to stoke that seed of femininity in me again. That softness was starting to get nurtured. And then for the first time in, I don't know how long, I had hope. I really thought finally this cycle that I'd been in was going to get fixed. So then I went and saw my naturopath, and he took my bubble, my excitement, and he just squished it. And he shut it down. He said, this is not healthy. This is not what you need, is this diet and this plan and this program. Now, I say he because he happened to be he, but it could have been any woman. This is the dieting world. This is the fitness world. It's very hard and very angry. So this beautiful bubble of hope that I had just got popped. And just like that, I recoiled back into that place of shame. And I thought, well, of course, I have to go back the hard way. But this was different because without knowing it, I had started to stoke that fire of femininity. And she was not going to be quenched. And she was persistent. She was tenacious, but she was tender. So she fought to be heard, but in a feminine way. So every time I tried to fix my problems the masculine way again, she would just whisper in my ear, it's not the way, it's not your way, we're going to go this way. So eventually I picked the book back up again and I started to do the work. But this time it was my secret, because there was no way I was taking this precious little bubble of hope that had come back again and I was not exposing it to the world. So I secretly nurtured my feminine side. Now I still at this point didn't call it that. I just knew the hard way wasn't serving me anywhere in my life. It was not fixing my food issues. It was not fixing my body image issues. It was not serving my marriage, because my husband wanted to be married to a woman, not a man. It was pretty hard sometimes. It wasn't serving my business. I was trying to grow my business in a masculine way, and I am a woman. So I just knew that this was my way, but I didn't yet call it the feminine power, because I didn't wear makeup, I didn't do my hair, I was the hockey player. And so over the next 10 years, this is what I did. In secret, I nurtured this side of me. And some interesting things started to happen. The shame started to slip away, and my courage started to emerge. And I started to just authentically step into my life. And this softness was coming with that. And all these amazing things started to happen. My food and body image issues started to take care of themselves. There was still work, it was still uncomfortable, but they started to be manageable. My marriage improved, my business started to flourish. And it was just this incredible realization that I didn't have to do things the fighting hard way, that I could bring in that femininity, I could bring in that softness, and I could be successful in all areas of my life that way. Now, 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Maui on a business conference. So I took my son with me, and I just melted into that island. It was just so powerful. It was the first time I'd ever felt that yin energy, that feminine energy in its full force. And we're watching a luau, and I'm crying because there's these big men, tattooed, they're massive, and they're doing these warrior dances, and it should be so hard, and yet there's this softness. And the women would come out, and they were soft and yet so strong. And this, I don't know, I've never seen that before. The Hawaiians have this way of embodying this masculine and feminine flow in such a beautiful, strong way. And it touched me so deeply. My son and I are both water babies, so we spend all of our time in the water. So we were floating in the ocean, and there's nothing to do, right? There's no distractions, there's no noise, and it's just that presence. And for the first time ever, I'm always out in nature, I'm always in water, but there, I felt Mother Earth in all of her glorious power. And I was supported. And it was that permission to be feminine and strong all at once. And that is my story of feminine power.